favor the war in Iraq. I mean, it's just, and if he wants to attack Iran, I favor that too, you know. And anyhow, so yeah, I challenge people to justify their belief system if they can. So I don't know if we're communicating or not anymore. I'm going to send them another letter and see if it works. In the meantime, those are my kids. I'm down here, and what's next?
Huh? You came back to the States?
Mm-hmm.
You came back to the States after the kibbutz?
Oh, okay. I came back to the States after the kibbutz, and that's when I went on Madison Avenue.
What'd you do there?
I get mixed. Anyhow,
Doesn't matter.
yeah, okay. At one point, I don't know the chronology of these things because this is screwed. I had been working on Madison Avenue before I went to Israel, and then when I came back, one of my friends who I knew from Madison Avenue told me about IBM and computers, and she said you'd be a cinch for it. So I went down to IBM and I took a test. And what she apparently had not told them, and what they assumed, was that because I had graduated from Wharton, I must be a business type. So they gave me 10 questions that were totally business oriented. I mean, completely. And unless I had, you know, some firsthand knowledge of it, I wasn't going to know it. But I answered 4 of the 10 right. And if I had answered one more right, even if I had guessed at it, they would have taken me into IBM in the business side of it. But when I flunked it, my friend went back to him and said, "You're crazy. You gave him the wrong test. You're evaluating him on the wrong thing. He's, you know, he's not that. He's more a scientist, a programmer, you know, somebody like that." So I got hired by IBM to do programming. And at the same time I was being hired by IBM, I was also called back by the business side, and they said, "Oh, please come to work for us. Please come to work for us. We didn't understand." Da, 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 da. And I stayed with the programmers. And so that's really what happened after I came back from Israel, is I ended up being a programmer for IBM and learned programming. And it was the first computer that IBM came out with that was a real business computer. It was small enough to work in an office, and it had magnetic tape, and you could get rid of all those stupid Hollerith cards with all the punches in them, because that's what the firm that I eventually ended up working for still was sorting stuff with the Hollerith cards with all the punches, and they wanted to get rid of that stuff. So I had written a program that was the most used program in the entire world of IBM in 1959, I guess it was, whatever it was. It was a conversion that took these Hollerith cards with all their punches in them and converted that to magnetic tape, and took where a record with the cards would take up 10 cards, I'd get it onto the tape as one solid, complete, non-duplicated stuff in there record. And it was a utility, so all that the people who used it had to do was punch in the code that would say, this is how I want it sorted, or this is what I want the records to be. And lo and behold, they'd get it. So everybody had these cards they hated. They wanted to go to mag tape, which was much faster, so they used the program to convert to tape. And it was just a utility, but it was the most important utility that there was, because that's the only way you could get to use the computer. So I did that, but when I came back is when I went to work for IBM, and I worked for them for a while. I was given an assignment. I was given a year to do it. 2 weeks before it was due, I did it. Can't say I did a great job, but I did it. And then the IBM group that I was with moved up to Armonk or someplace like that. And I had a choice of moving up to Armonk or staying in New York. And I stayed in New York, and then I found a job with another computer outfit, and that job led to working on Wall Street. So I worked on Wall Street as a data processing manager. And then I was recruited out of that job to go to work for a company that was converting to computer, and they were an IBM company. They were using IBM equipment, so they wanted me to be the DP manager. And I did that for a short time. And then, I have to tell you the truth, at some point along the way, I was working for IBM, and I met a key punch operator, and I was very, very shy, and I'm not shy now. And I was very, very shy, and I was about almost, say, 29, almost 30. And so we hooked up, we became lovers, and New Year's Eve of 1992, we were at a party down in Bed-Stuy. I don't know if you know what Bed-Stuy is. Okay, I got to shake no. Okay, Bed-Stuy was that part.
Bedford-Stuyvesant is the full name of it, right?
Yeah, Bedford-Stuyvesant. And it was the roughest, worst black ghetto in New York, and it was in Brooklyn. And so we ended up in Bed-Stuy, and we were probably the only two white people in the whole party. There were lots of blacks and a lot of Puerto Ricans. And at one point, I passed out, and Susie, that's my second wife, and Carolyn got enough Dutch courage in her that she came over, she shook me awake, and she said, "We got to get married." Okay, if you say so, I accept your proposal. So at 3 o'clock in the morning, in a drunken state in the worst ghetto in New York City, in New York, yeah, because it's part of New York City, Brooklyn is, I accepted, and we got married about a year later, I guess. And in between, we had some adventures, like her mother calling her girlfriend where she was supposed to be living, and her girlfriend would say, "Oh, hold on a second, Carolyn just went out for the paper. She'll call you when she gets back." And the girlfriend would call Carolyn at my place, and then Carolyn would call her mother and say, "Oh yeah, I'm okay." Da, da, da. And so, this went on for a while, and eventually I had to go ask her parents for permission to marry her. Now, Carolyn was a WASP. I don't know what religion, but a WASP, some sort of Protestant. And she lived out on the island, and her parents were rednecks. And so I had to go to them and ask them for their daughter's hand in marriage. I felt it was, tradition. So I went in and I asked, and Carolyn is outside or standing next to me, and I say, we